Next on the agenda is the State of the City budget message.
Manager.
Mr. Landrum.
Good evening, Mayor Stone, Vice Mayor Adams, and City Council. Tonight, we will, and you have handouts at your seat if you want to follow along one way or the other. Purpose of the State of the City is kind of a fourfold thing. Is to one, the State of the City is to address, is provided annually to update citizens on the current fiscal accountability, operations of capital accomplishments of the city, to present the upcoming municipal budget and near future plans for city improvements to maintain and enhance facilities and service delivery. And this is one I added because per charter this should be done annually as well, an inventory of the properties of the city as of the end of each fiscal year, which was actually interesting to go through. Nothing surprised, but interesting at none to say the least. As city manager, I'm always proud to share with the community the state of the city address. The state of the city provides just a snapshot. Remember, this is a frozen snapshot in time, and a transition to 2021. Hopefully this year is a much better transition than last year. A complete version of the State of the City with the department accomplishments, goals will be available on the city website sometime this week. It's much lengthier. I'll try to speed this along, but the full version is more in depth on all the accomplishments the city departments did this year. So please check that out when it's available. So 2020, has been a challenging year for all, of course. We started with, remember, this time last year, we're thinking, whew, we made it through May, the tornado, the cleanup. We had huge piles of brush, and that we thought, man, that's going to be our first task to do in 2020 is to get those brush piles chipped up, hauled away, and out of here. But it didn't take long, and actually only 19 days into the year that we lost Jeff McGrath. And so that set us back on our heels. Council was gracious enough in October to approve a name change of a road by Dunkin' Donuts to McGrath Way, that part of Lance Road. And I like this to say about what Jeff I said, if we do it the McGrath way, I'm sure we will be successful, and that is all Jeff ever wanted for Beavercreek, is for Beavercreek to be successful. So we have that. That's the least we could do for Jeff in his memory, and may it stand for forever. And as we hope to get that road completed and punched out to Dayton Xenia Road sometime in the very near future. So then, of course, on the heels of that, here comes COVID, and that not just changed our city, that changed our entire country. At first when it started, we thought we just had to flatten the curve, and it would be 2 weeks, it would be 3 weeks, it would be a month, and then we began to see the bigger picture that this isn't going away anytime soon. With that, we shifted to tornado cleanup, and COVID pandemic resulted in staff shifting priorities, delays in capital improvements, infrastructure, and delays in equipment purchases, the whole gamut. The pandemic also created significant services modifications and reductions in operations at the senior center, golf course, parks, recreation, culture, but it did everything. It changed the way the police had to function, it changed the way public service had to function, it changed every department to a certain degree. Just being the 6 feet and wearing masks and having clean everything all the time. So it changed everything we do. The financial impacts of COVID-19, these are trying times, but I tell you, staff continued with the day-to-day operations and provide the region's best possible municipal services to the community, all the while trying to reduce expenditures to match the service levels and additional costs, at the same time to provide the employees and residents and the facilities protection to curb the pandemic. So at the same time, we had to, while we're trying to cut expenses because we're going to lose revenue, which I'll touch on, we had to actually spend money to make sure everybody was safe. Due to state mandates, shutdowns, the city closed the golf course and the senior center during this period of time. all recreational activities as well for a period of time, causing permanent layoffs to 3 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees at the golf course. That's where we are right now. That's under the food and beverage department, and that's something we'll be looking at in 2021. Also, 4 full-time and 2 part-time employees at the Beavercreek Senior Center and Parks and Recreation were temporarily laid off during the shutdown order. There was a period of time when the short shutdown order happened. It just shut everything down for those types of activities that we could not do. And with the loss in revenues that were coming and unknown, you got to remember, every Thursday, the governor was coming on, what's next? We really didn't know. And so we had to get ahead of the curve, so to speak, in our regarding our expenses and trying to project what revenues are going to be impacted. So we not only laid off those staff as well, there was a reduction and delay in hiring seasonal staff. A hiring freeze included full-time and part-time and seasonal positions, except for those deemed essential. And I had to make those as a day-by-day decision. As the infrastructure came up, the grass still needed cutting, the roads still needed work to be done or things removed. So we had to continue to move forward with some. Freezes on current seasonal positions, hours, except those deemed essential. Some of the parks, a lot of parks, any recreational seasonal staff and stuff like that weren't hired. We wanted to get them in place, so we did tell them, okay, you're officially hired, but we don't know when you'll start. We tried to do some of those, again, thinking, okay, any day this could go back to normal. Well, that didn't happen. Freeze on capital items not already ordered unless approved by the city manager, capital purchasing, capital projects. Some of the stuff already happened. Were in line, already ordered, and some things we just felt like we had to move ahead anyway on. Here's some of the revenues that we were looking at that were impacted. And these are estimates. We aren't finished with the year, but pretty close estimates. Hotel motel tax, of course, that's general fund, and that they impacted it because, of course, the hotels, most of them shut down and travel and everything else, especially during the stay-at-home order. It's came back somewhat, but it's definitely down and projected to be down for 2021. Interest income, we went from getting over 2%, doing pretty good and up, and now we have to pay the bank to keep our money just about. So it's not good there. Gas taxes, the gas tax was just increased, and we conservatively estimated how much we were going to budget for that gas tax, and glad we did because we ended up being short $500,000. There is other things I'll show you here soon how we still made up for gas tax. Property taxes, that was a hit just because of 2019 tornado. It really didn't have to do, but the timing of which we weren't sure what that number was going to be, and then when it came to light, about $416,000. Now we're bouncing back some of that in 2021 because those homes have been rebuilt and fixed and repaired, and so they got their year worth of reduction in property taxes, and now it'll be making its way back. Parks, senior center and parks fees, and those are mostly activity fees and revenue, for programming. Parks department, just to give you an idea, funds 85-90% of their programming is done by fees and supported. So, 85-90% of the parks programming you see is self-supported, so it's really good. But we did lose that, but we did, of course, cut the expenses of the program, not having them. Golf, I mentioned food and beverage. There's, canceled events from golf outings, food and beverages, weddings. I mean, you name it. All that was also a loss. So you're talking about $1.6 million in revenues lost throughout different various funds throughout this time. During the shutdown, all non-essential employees worked from home during that period of time when the stay-at-home order was in effect. But we ensured that city services were maintained. We did close public facilities, including City Hall, for a period of time, and then reopened them. Buildings and public places, we closed playgrounds, shelters, rentals, CI Beaver Hall. Of course, the golf course closed for about 2 weeks itself. City council meetings were held virtually. That was fun. people only knew that's not the easiest thing to do. But that was fun. Additional cleaning had to be provided at all facilities. I mean, everywhere you look, you have a hand sanitation. We have people, public service guys going around spraying every single day, bombing different things. And anytime there's a COVID employee or COVID employee spouse or child or anything that there's reported, everything gets extra clean for that. Around that person and around that facility. So a lot of things that just you didn't think about. Touchless technologies has been installed throughout city facilities, soap dispensers, toilets, sinks, hand sanitizers. A lot of this is CARES funding that we're able to use this. Ionizers have been added to the HVAC mechanical systems in every city building. So including City Hall has an ionizer connected to the HVAC mechanical. Definitely at the senior center. Senior center also has these automatic temperature taking machines that's going to, we took extra care with the senior center knowing that basically since that's definitely a population that we need to protect. Protection of all staff and residents will continue on a daily basis during the pandemic. City changes, community, Beavercreek elected officials responded efficiently and effectively with changing mandates. Again, every day was a different story with something else that came up. The city shows its resilience in providing virtual programs to keep residents engaged during the stay-at-home order, Greene County Public Health Department restrictions. So to seniors, they offered virtual exercise classes on YouTube, the Recreation Weekly Roundup emails, collection of resources, links, activities that people could do at home. So they were really, especially the senior center staff, they're tremendous. And they were doing everything they could during the times that they were at work. Even when they were on the stay-at-home order, they were working from home, doing the contacts and stuff up until the point of layoff. Virtual wellness walkers program, they had egg decorating contests, continued senior transportation as doctor offices for a period of time. So at first we continued the transportation. Staff was actually, our transportation at senior centers ran by volunteers, supported by volunteers as many things are in the city. Mayor Stone is one of our drivers, so how would you like to be transported around by the mayor of the city? Some people might be shocked, but that is, he's a great, one of our bus drivers, usual bus drivers. So during that period of time, staff had to take over because of volunteers, again, not knowing everything. And of course, our volunteers, most of them for the seniors are elderly, so they're at risk. So our staff went to a limited transportation with staff doing doctor visits only for a period of time. Then when the senior center got down to the point of having to close, we temporarily halted it, but then staff connected riders with other local transportation resources, including Green Cats and different things for those. But at that point in time, doctors' offices were shutting down, hospitals were not doing any kind of elective surgeries, so it was felt like the need was still being met through other means. We engaged the community with senior center drive-through events when unable to open at the senior center. They really enjoyed that, from meals and a whole bunch of other activities. Switching gears, the police department transitioned from normal operations to limited operations during the initial onset of COVID-19, and of course, numerous of the events, the activities were canceled. The open house, that's a joint city hall open house we normally have, and Safety Town, of course, was canceled. That kids really love and enjoy that, and has a good use of teaching kids safety. Events will return hopefully in 2021, provided we can conduct it safely. So we will just see. But many things like that just had to be canceled. Touch on technology. One of the things during this time, it really pushed us on technology, which is good. That's something I've been pushing since I've got here 4 years ago now. And we've really made huge strides. So this year, 2 more huge strides came. MyPay is a payroll system implemented to allow staff to view payroll information online, creating a paperless environment. So when I first got here, everybody was still getting paper checks and paper pay stubs. No longer. Now it's all online, all paperless. So, and it's nice too, because they can log in and see a paycheck from 3 months ago if they want to and print it out at their leisure. So makes it really handy. Bamboo HR is a software program, increases efficiency in automating the hiring process. Again, this was paid for through CARES. But this is where, of course, you can apply online, but then all your paper processing, if you're a full-time person, what's your selection of health insurance? What's your taxes going to be? What's your, information, emergency contact, all those forms that you have to fill out. Normally, they would have to come, and our HR manager would sit before them and have them go through all the paperwork. Now, all this will be done before they hit our door. So again, paperless, phone call if need be, email if need be to help explain something. But this is particularly important during our seasonal employees because we have 70 plus, 80. We have that job fair every single year for that. Golf course, parks and rec, our maintenance staff all depend heavily on seasonal employees, and this is going to be a way to safely and more efficiently get all the paperwork out of the way as we move forward. Just two things here, and I'll mention this back in 2020 when I get to 2021. Dude Solutions will continue to be vital in 2021, and budget software will also be in 2021 that we'll be looking at. Street projects continue to aggressively pursue and receive grant monies from federal, state, and local sources. This was a record-setting infrastructure and capital improvement year. Record-setting. In the middle of a pandemic, it was the busiest construction season we probably ever had, especially with grant funding. Of course, it does show our dependency on grant funding for infrastructure because it was huge. In 1997 we already have been awarded some future grants of 2025. We have $94.7 million in grant funding for streets and infrastructure projects. It's huge. We did, one of the reasons you saw I said $500,000 loss in gas tax money. One of the things we had that helped us move forward, continue to move forward, number one, if it was a grant funding, we got to move forward or we lose the money. So that's one issue. But even the other projects that weren't as far as grant funded, we felt we could move forward even with the loss of gas tax because of some lower bids that came in. So I just want a couple slides here and update on what's going on with some of these. Dayton Xenia Road widening. This one and Kemp Road are both grants, both big grant funded projects, as you can see. And both going to be done fall 2021 for Dayton Xenia and summer of 2021, hopefully with Kemp Road. A lot of people, why do you start them late, and why does it take so long, go over 2 years, can't you get that done? It all has to do with grant funding because the state fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th, and they basically spread it out over 2 years, so it forces us to spread it out over 2 years. So unfortunately, that causes us 2 seasons, construction seasons, for us to go on these projects. But you can see on the Dayton Xenia, this to give you the example, the bit between what was budgeted and projected to what was the bid amount, we saved $605,000. Kemp Road, we saved $298,000. So early on when we found out that came, I think the contractors were hungry because of COVID and wanted the jobs. But seeing those huge bid amount savings come in gave us very good pause that we'll be okay to move forward with the projects with the gas tax being down. Kemp Road signals, that'll be February 2021. That is all right there where it's going on, but those are road signals that are corner of Kemp Road and North Fairfield's one. So that'll be done. The poles and the masts are up. Lock Drive culvert, that's been completed. State Route 835 resurfacing, we would hope we would have gotten to that. We will not, but the bid came in $300,000 under. So again, but that will be begin in spring of 2021. That'll be very nice. It's getting and that includes the median where the concrete islands are that are crumbling as well. That's doing all of that. So that will be very good. Colonel Glenn Highway streetscape, that'll come be completed in March of 2021. I have a few pictures I'll show you. It's looking very good. A couple things, including a welcome sign coming in to the city, and a couple other more bricks and some other things. Curb and resurfacing, that came in under $258,000 as well. The excess amount of that, of course, returns to the fund balance. So a couple of pictures if you haven't been out there. I travel these roads nearly every day, Kemp Road and Dayton Xenia, because I live on the west side, so to speak. So anytime I have to come east, I'm traveling either Kemp or Dayton Xenia. So when people say, do you see what's going on that road? Yes, I see it every single day because I'm on it. Gives me good awareness and good say, hey, there's something wrong here. But Colonel Glenn streetscape is like you see there, it's looking real good, and that'll be done very shortly. Dayton Xenia road widening again. Anybody that was just here a couple years ago, when the other part was tore up, it's very reminiscent of that time where it shifted, and it's not the best. We'll probably have to move the barrels over just a hair. If it get a significant amount of snow and different things, we'll take care of that. But it'll be tight. Yeah, it's tight. When you pass a truck, and I'm in a big truck, you kind of get a little nervous there. So yeah, there'll be and then you got up against guardrails and concrete barriers as well. And if you make one wrong turn, Noel's Nursery, you might have a drive-through there, mistakenly. Not something they want. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the 1% income tax initiative. Of course, we remember that during 2020, a resident-led group came before City Council with the tax initiative to help with the city revenue and infrastructure issues. An initiative was placed on the November 2020 election ballot. The results basically were the 52 against and 48 for. But compared to 13 results, 62 against and 38 for, that really gained a lot of, I think, communication happened. A lot of more information came to the voters. Not quite successful, but definitely an improvement. I wanted just to say, though, the income tax initiative, failure of the income tax, you'll hear a lot in this message tonight, it doesn't make the issues of the infrastructure disappear, nor does it help with the financial burden of the city services fully being on property owners. Those were the two key issues of the income tax, and that doesn't change those facts. Communication challenges due to COVID were, of course, horrendous. You couldn't get out, and hard to talk person to person, which most best form of communication is always going to be group settings. And so without that, that was hard to get a message, and social media just wasn't going to cut it. Accomplishments, even with the challenges of the pandemic, department staff accomplished much during the 2020. I just want to highlight a few. Finance Department, received the Ohio Auditor of State Award with distinction, for the city for 9 consecutive years. That in itself is remarkable. But also, the finance staff had to do all the FEMA reimbursements, make sure we got everything correct with all that. So in the middle of that, now with the COVID, dealing with all the CARES funding and having to balance all that, and what's the rules, what do we got to do with this? It's been a horrendous time for the finance department when it comes to all this funding that's coming and the rules and restrictions, and the finance department and Mr. Casera have definitely and will deserve the state award with distinction after managing the funding for this year. Parks and Rec and Culture completed an ADA accessibility audit of all the parks and facilities and created a transition plan. They installed the ADA dock at Dominic Lafino Park and installed additional play equipment for 2 to 5 years old at Gerspacher Park. Crack sealed coating through Mount Zion Cemetery. If you haven't been there, you need to get out to Mount Zion before it gets too cold and snowy. Completed construction of the columbarium at Mount Zion and held an open house. Right now, also part of 2021, we'll be updating, I'll say it lightly, we'll be updating the shack that is at Mount Zion Park. That's basically what it is. It's an embarrassment that we have customers that go into I called it Cooter's Garage. That's about what it looked like, a block building that wasn't heated, it was heated but not air conditioned, and just very poor representation of the city. So that's going to be coming forward. We created even more challenges for the recreation staff. Events and programs. The virtual programs were created during the shutdown when mandates began to lift, and started back up in-person programming. So this was monumental. Tasks were accomplished for staff to begin reopening and ensure that all state and public health guidelines and restrictions were met. So it was exciting when we would hear the governor on Thursday begin to tell us and announce what things would begin to be allowed. You know, it seemed like it would trickle, and we'd hear about it on Thursday, and it'd be the following week before we actually got the actual hard copy of the guidelines, and then we'd have to study them, and can we meet these things? Can we do this thing? So we had to do a lot of research and be creative, and staff was doing a very good job. But we were able to still have summer concert series. Hey, thinking outside the box, we asked the bands, hey, what if we just videotape you, and would you be willing to do that? Yes. So we had 3 virtual concerts. 4th of July fireworks. Boy, did we need that. We needed to come together as a community. We found a way to make it happen. And thanks to Fairfield Commons Mall and the property, that we were able to have that. Very successful. Drive-through Tri-A-Truck. I heard nothing but good things on the Tri-A-Truck. People love, thank you so much. Or kids just, you know, kids normally love to crawl all over the equipment, but not this year. They just got to see it from their car window, but they loved it still. They got them out of the house and got them to see a truck that they still like and will remember to crawl on next time. Senior Center Transportation restarted again with the rules. Summer day camps. We did have summer day camps. A lot less, numbers, of course, but we were able to have it. We weren't able to do the field trips like we would take them and go various places, but still yet the kids had a good time and were safe. Senior Center staff implemented drive-through style special events, which we said. We did work with Activity Health to begin the Silver Sneakers program that will begin in 2021. That was important as well. The police department was successful in earning their 7th CALIA accreditation since 1999 and their 3rd consecutive gold standard award with excellence. We have an awesome police department. Kudos to Chief Evers, who's headed towards that retirement, and we thank him for all his years of service that he did and keeping up with this. And I know Chief Fiorita will be right on his heels on making sure these accreditations are done. Planning and development in collaboration with the police department created massage establishment legislation to help curb human trafficking passed by City Council. That was a great thing to happen. That really will help the city, help the police. Hey, the legal massage parlors, we want you to flourish. The illegal ones, the human trafficking, get out. Plain and simple. Engineering staff, I skipped one thing here. So planning also updated the 2020 land use plan and saw a significant increase on online permitting. I'll talk to that later, but that was just in time that we had the program up and running in 2009 for the online permitting because it was heavily used in 2020. Engineering staff accomplished the repair and resurfacing of over 8.97 centerline miles of roadways, part of the 2020 annual resurfacing program, and completed the construction of Lock Drive, culvert replacement. You see all the projects there. I'm not going to, Shakertown Road Extension, that was huge. All those, Old Mill Lane Bridge and replacement, and of course the 2020 curb replacement and resurfacing program. Public Service Division implemented citywide COVID sanitation and prevention protocols. So really, it fell on public service because they maintained the buildings to begin. We got to clean everything. We got to put the sanitation systems out. We got to do all this. So they have done an excellent job. I applaud Public Services for keeping employees safe. Continue searching opportunities for networking. Of course, we're always going to do that with other communities, include shared services. We were 2020 Tree City USA. We met the requirements. They didn't have the service that we normally would have in, what was that, May, April, somewhere around there. but we did meet the requirements. Continue to build Dude Solutions Asset Essentials platform. This is something I'll talk about here in a minute, but implemented parts inventory features to increase expense tracking. So that's, again, in what we call Dude Solutions, which has many different programs within it, but for ease of use, we'll call it Dude Solutions. That's the overall program. As of November 30th, golf had, this is amazing, golf had 29,730 rounds, which is up 4,400 rounds, up from 19, with being shut down for 2 weeks and additional 2 weeks at least of being limited play. Because when the rules came out, 1 per cart, and the distancing and the scrambles, where you couldn't do scrambles a certain way, it was really, then conversations began to have with the public health department, and they really helped us. Mayor Stone was in my office one day, and it's just a testimony to public health. Melissa Howell, our public health commissioner. I said, well, let's call her. And I called her on my cell phone, sat there, and Mayor and I talked to her and explained. She goes, sure, I think that's okay. Bam, got it done. So very thankful for public health on working with the city on things that what we can do to maintain safety. This is just a few hundreds of the accomplishments over the last year. The detailed report of accomplishments will have everything. Again, this is just shortcutting it, but look forward at beavercreekohio.gov coming up soon. So the executive summary of the 2021 appropriation budget, fiscal year January 1st through December 31st of 2021. This is to meet the section in our charter 10.10 presenting and considering the budget, the annual municipal budget on an annual basis. So this meets the criteria for that. And the budget processes in the past, I just want to say that we always strive that I press the department heads, we all press each other really, that the level to maintain the level high services and residents have been accustomed to, but how can we do it better? How can we do it more fiscally sound? How can we do it by sharing of resources, or what else can we do? No rock is not uncovered, stone uncovered if we can. Involved in developing creative solutions, like again, from technology to efficiency, department reorganizations that we had in planning department this year, aggressively pursuing grant opportunities, of course. City Council's policy of maintaining the minimum reserve balance to 20%, that has been achieved. And just for the public's interest, the public budget work sessions were conducted on November 16th and 17th with staff and City Council, and it included citizen input. So all this information from the budget and all that, the budget and the capital budget, the 5-year capital plan will all be online this week. And it is a line-by-line item. If you haven't seen our budget, it is literally a line item by line item explaining what's in that line item. And it's good for people to see, and we have a PDF version of it that is pretty user-friendly that you can go through the document if you're looking for something specific. All right, so here's a snapshot of the summary of revenue and expenditures, and this is in the millions. And as you can see, the fund balances, the percentage of fund balances, except for the capital improvement budgets, which are lower than the 20% because we try to spend everything in those for the most part. When you look at, you say, oh, 27.5% in the general fund. Wow, you're only talking a projected fund balance of 1.4. When you're talking a whole city budget of 40 million, that's not much cushion. So that's not a whole lot. And the same is true with the street levy budget that shows 35.4%. That's only $1.69 million budget in that. We have to hold back because we have grant cash matches and projects that cost significantly. So there are years that we have to hold back some because the following year, just like 2020 was a huge record-breaking year. We have to hold back for that next huge record-breaking year or project that we do. So that's why some of those balances are like that. But we'll get into more of that here in a second. So revenue by category. Property taxes, of course, this is going to show that the city's reliance on property taxes and grants to generate revenues necessary to maintain operations and fund the capital improvement program. Of course, property tax being the largest, 21.7 million, or approximately 58.3% of the total revenue budget. This represents a 2.7 increase over last year. And I will say part of that 2.7 is a rebound from the tornado, there is some increase from appraisals. But let me explain to everybody that's watching and may not understand. Despite the increase in property values, voted levy revenues remain relatively the same. 90% of our funding that we receive in property taxes, 90% of those property taxes are voted levies. Voted levies, our city voted levies, do not change with appraisals. So if you have a 500% in your home value and you think the city's getting all that 500% increase, all those, the street levy, police levy, park levy, they do not get a dime more from your appraisal. Okay, that's important for people to understand. The inside millage in the general fund does, but it's a relatively small amount. And just because you get a 500% increase doesn't mean we get a 500% revenue increase. That's not the way it works anyway. But just wanted to clarify that. Intergovernmental revenues at 5.4 million is the second largest revenue, and this source includes like local government funds, cigarette tax, liquor and beer licenses, hotel motel when we have some, gasoline and motor vehicle tax, and fees. The pandemic has reduced revenue in the local government funds, hotel, of course, motel tax, consumption fees, and such as fuel taxes and interest earnings. So it did impact intergovernmental revenues. Grant revenues is the third largest revenue source, comprising of 1.87 million or 5% of the budget. And of that, 1.3 million of ODOT grants for the two major street infrastructure projects. So what I wanted to say there, that is small potatoes this year. In 2020, so keep that in mind, you had 1.87 million or 5% of the budget. Last year, even after deducting FEMA money that we were expecting, take FEMA out, our grant funding was 6.8 million, which was 15.9% of our total budget. So again, this year, grants are a little secular in nature. We'll have higher years, lower years. I mean, we still got two major projects of grant funding projects that are happening, and we couldn't take on any more right now until those are completed anyway. So to make up the remaining revenue includes charges for services, interfund transfers, license, fines, fees, special assessments, and other miscellaneous revenues. When we go to expenditures by function, as you can see, the street and capital, that's street funds are the largest. The total budget's 40.2 million, or approximately 7.2 million decrease over the 2020 adopted. Okay, so a big part of that is grant funding that did not come in. This large decrease is due to 3 million in budgeted FEMA fund that we won't get again, related to a tornado, and a significant decrease in the capital improvement budgeted for 2021. Budgeted in 2020, actually. In the 2021 proposed budget by function, we said street, $16.7 million, 40.2% of the total budget. This includes 11.41 for infrastructure improvements, 5.4 million less than 2020. So there it is right there. And that's not including the other 3 millions in FEMA that's not there. So you add those two items right there, you're over $8 million difference. Public safety represents the second largest portion of the budget at 11.34 million, or 28.2% of the total budget. As well as Parks and Rec represents 3.61 million, or 9% of the budget, and the remaining 9.15 million is comprised of the golf course debt service and the general fund. As you can see, those are much smaller numbers. So when you get to expenditures by category, the largest category is wages and benefits. Well, that kind of makes sense. We're a so-called service industry. So wages and benefits accounting for 16.6 million, or 41.3% of the city's total budget, includes salary increase of union and non-union of 2 to 2.5%, and a blended health insurance rate increase of 12.43%. Now, I mind you that if, in the budget hearings, we had Mr. Casera speak on this, and we've been, in the last 5 years, anywhere at 2%, 3%, 4% increases in health insurance. We've done really well. We will have to keep a close eye on this as this continues to increase. We will have to look at what options are out there for us to hold back those costs. But this 1 year of that is if you look over a 5-year period of time, we've done really, really well. The second largest component of the budget is, of course, capital, which is $10.04 million, 24.9% of the budget. And the majority of these expenses relate to the street funds, which includes dedicated capital improvements as part of the 5-year capital improvement plan. This was $13.72 million in 2020. So that just tells you right there, $3 million less than 2020. Contracted is the third largest category, representing $8.45 million, or 21% of the budget. Some of the larger items budgeted include, contractual include like resurfacing of the streets and curb repair, $2.95 million. Increase due to delay in the scope of project last year and receipt of reimbursement from FEMA. So we're able to try to get that back on track. The other thing I want to state very strongly on that is that we started in 2020. This was a change in our street repaving and curb replacement program. Starting in 2020, the curb program became directly linked to the streets that we are repaving. And in 2021, we will be doing more curbs to do the curbs associated with the streets that will be paved in 2022. So in other words, we're going to get ahead of the curve because it's hard to do a street repaving and a curb at the same time. So we're going to be, since FEMA caused us to get a little bit behind and we have the FEMA reimbursement, now we're going to get a year ahead of the curb so that we'll always try to be a year ahead of that program. Our point there is we will not put down good asphalt over bad curbs, plain and simple. Interfund charges for indirect costs is part of contractual. Other professional services, including legal fees, prosecution services, liability and property insurance, Greene County Combined Health Services, animal control, audit costs, recreational programming, and the In Touch newsletter. All right, so the budget also, a few highlights, also includes a reduction of 3 full-time, we said this, and 1 part-time employees in the food and beverage division of golf course. This was a result of limited service levels related to the pandemic and reorganization of that service sector. The budget also includes a hiring of a full-time communications manager to increase communications with the residents and employees, and also with the reorganization of Planning and Development Department. A part-time planning secretary is budgeted to create greater efficiency and redistribute, if I can talk right, I need some water, services to best serve residents. What's basically happening in planning in a nutshell is that with the passing of Jeff McGrath and the promotion of Randy Burkett to planning director, that left a planning position open, and the thought of code enforcement needing more assistance. So we have a hybrid. There will be a zoning supervisor that will be part zoning code enforcement and part picking up some of the planning functions of permitting and certain things that will be able to be done there. That's the best of both worlds. That shows a shift in what we're doing. We're to our needs. It also overall is a budget reduction. With the delay of many capital equipment purchases during the last 2 years, the city has dedicated $1.7 million in replacement equipment and approximately $1 million in facility maintenance and improvements. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. Excuse me, I did need some water. The city continues to increase operational efficiencies with the replacement of several critical information technology improvements to create the city's IT storage capacity and to increase speed. So the city is going to continue to review additional software and enhancements and continue to aggressive programs in line with the city's overall objective, increasing operational efficiency. So we are doing a couple, one big improvement of our a hard line wire in between here and an upgrade in our some of our storage. Now, when I talk about all these programs that we are getting though, I will say this, every one of them are web-based, meaning they're cloud-based, so we're not taking in most of the stuff, but there are stuff that we have here that are still required to take on site. Much of the police stuff that we have to have on site. But you know, there is a cost for storage in the cloud as well, but then you don't, and you still pay a maintenance fee. So sometimes I argue with myself on whether or not which way's better on that, but you don't have to necessarily have a full-time IT person necessarily if you don't have hardware as much. Park projects for 2021 budgeted: playground replacement, Grangeview Acres, bridge replacement, dam safety repairs at Dominic Lafino Dock, bridge improvement at Merrick Park, a connection to a playground at Summerfield Park. That means making that sidewalk. That'd be nice. Council member Garcia will like that one. Yes, that would be good. Right now it's just kind of dirt or gravel, dirt, mulch a little bit. A connection to the playground, Summerfield Park, as we said, and a new walking path looping, if I get it right, Vergalato Park. I hope I said that. If I said it wrong, I'm sorry. Are also budgeted. Phase 2 of the deferred maintenance plan that replaces 2 of the 12 HVAC units at Senior Center. This is where I'll talk to you about that. Remember that as a point. There's 12 of them. Without having a budgeted plan, when 12 go out at one time costing $13,000–$15,000 a piece, because you know the building was built or rehabbed at the same time, so all of them age at the same time. The budget includes $50,000 phase 4 of 6 for the cart path resurfacing program of the golf course. So we're glad to get to maintain the golf course as well. Also includes $20,000 for installation of driving range netting to capture golf balls well before they reach 675 and the surrounding holes. Lord help us if we have golf balls bouncing on 675. Don't want that. And switching to some street projects here. I'm not going to go long on these, but you just say Indian Ripple sidewalks. That's construction to begin May 2021. County line road widening. That's being worked on. You guys seen right-of-way acquisitions and stuff that's been happening this year. So that's construction is definitely going to begin in June of 2021. And that is, when we talk about cooperation and working with other cities, there's a fine purpose of it. It's another county, but it's Kettering. Kettering came to us and they said, yeah, we're doing this. And we said, oh, back the boat up. We said, we want to do it with you, not, you know. There were some other things said as well, I won't go into, but it ended up being a good project. They're lead on this, but they were going to widen just their side, and it makes no sense to do that. So that's we entered into an agreement with them, and some grant funds, as you see, $930,000. They love grant funds, love it when you have jurisdictions sharing on a project. And then you can see the rest of some of the other that are not grant funded, and the side path, which I mentioned, and curbs and annual resurfacing of the $2.95 million, which I've already went into. So lots going on next year still with projects, but all those projects just listed. But remembering Kemp Road's got to be finished, all those, you know, Dayton Xenia, all those ones that we will still be needing to finish as well. So looking ahead, you know, goals: each staff continues to find creative solutions, implementing technology and innovations, researching and implementing shared resources, identifying efficiencies, improvements, again, reorganizing departments, whatever it takes, pursuing grant opportunities, and anything we can do to be more cost effective and efficient. The city manager is my role. I will continue to ensure that the city council's policy directives are implemented promptly and efficiently, develop strategies for provide long-term operational stability, sustainability, alternatives to address the funding and timing of the city's levies, and continue to find ways to expand shared services and review consolidation strategies and efficiencies to reduce costs. Increase communication presence with the local media, cable access channels, newsletters, social media sites, effectively notify the community on what's happening. We're including adding the communications manager, so it's not just about social media, but since I got here, I mean, we've increased 100-fold on not just social media, but press releases in the paper, all those kinds of things. We have good rapport with the news, but adding that communication manager, that is all they do is tout and solve and hear and be able to get feedback. There's so much that goes unsaid. We take it for granted in our circle that public knows so much about what we're doing, and at simple times it's just not accurate. It's our perception because we're in it from day to day, but this will definitely increase communications to the residents. We need to further advance technology to increase operational efficiencies. The police department hopefully will do Safety Town and educate preschool children about safety. Conduct open house, hopefully, and National Night Out. Planning department staff will work to compile the 2020 decennial census data to make the in-depth analysis and growth trends in the city from 1980 to 2020. So I don't know exactly what the timing of when that data is released. I imagine it would be in 2021 at some point in time, but that's going to be crunching the numbers and seeing what changed and our demographics in every way. So that's slicing and dicing of the information will be up and coming. Work with Planning Commission, City Council, and affect property owners to correct zoning map inconsistencies. Planning Department will still do this, and approve an official zoning map. Parks and Recreation will work on the Beavercreek Historical Society this is exciting, finally, with McGill Smith Punchun, if I can say that, architects, to design a historically accurate replacement of the Tobias Zimmer barn. Construction anticipated for spring of 2021. Of course, those who don't know, the tornado wiped out the Zimmer barn and literally destroyed it. And so this is the rebuilding of that finally. Silver Sneakers program will be implemented at the Senior Center. Expand culture and arts programming with one new cultural event or program, hopefully. Roll out public web-based searchable cemetery map. Again, technology here for Mount Zion, Ailey, and Hawker cemeteries. And it's called Grave Discover, so that'll be a nice feature. I mean, we literally, how do you tell who's buried here? There's a filing cabinet, and about 5 years ago, good luck at filing the cards. They weren't even, anyway, much improved. This will add even better on top of that. And update the Mount Zion Cemetery building, which I stated earlier. All right, so infrastructure and capital forecasting. I want to spend just a couple of minutes that I have left here. 2018, 2020, I talked about Dude Solutions. That's the program we started in 2018. It first started in public service because it's our work order system in 2018. You want something done to a building, a work order is done. You want something done to a pothole, a work order is done. And earlier you heard me talk about inventory and things like that. Well, this is a system where they can begin to put in the information to the work order to what kind of material it took to do the order, so you can begin capturing costs with the work order as well. Public Services conducted a facility condition assessment, maintenance, and replacement schedules for the city assets, much unfunded. They did that in 2019. We have in Dude Solutions, it's called Assets Essential, I'll get it right, has all our building data in it. What I mean, how old's a roof? When's it supposed to be replaced? How old's the windows? What's the lifespan of the windows, the HVAC systems, the electrical, the plumbing, the hot water heaters, what is the regular routine maintenance? How often should the filters be replaced? How often should this be updated? How often should the asphalt be paved or sealed? Has all that kind of data in there. Unfortunately, that's a good lot of data, but fortunately we don't have staffing. What's data? After a year or two, 3, gets old if you don't update it. So we're going to be working this year to get the updated water heaters, the updated driveways that we sealed, the updated water heaters we replaced, trying to maintain the amount we did in 2020 so that it will be accurate. It's a struggle. I will not kid you. That's just for our buildings and infrastructure pieces related to facilities, okay? Public services, excuse me, let me go on. I had just told you about the implemented parts inventory features to increase expense tracking and started data points descriptions in 2020. I'll tell you what data points are. Data points are, we have this where eventually we want that the system is connected with GIS and mapping, that the vans or drone does the laser, tells you what condition, how many miles, linear feet of sidewalks, curbs, road signs, light poles, all that, your whole asset inventory. Then you can build projects with it, and so you could say, oh, it graded as poor, it graded as good, it graded as whatever. You then have to maintain that data, or it's a waste of the data going in. Right now we have spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, estimates on this, estimates on that. Engineering has done an outstanding job. Let me say something about this. About 17, 18 years ago, my father and I built a shed, 10 by 10 shed. You know what I built it on? I didn't have a plan. I took a piece of paper, 10 by 10, 2 by 4s, 16 on center. I figured my pitch of my roof, calculated how many I would need. We built the shed, not a problem. Still standing, I see it. I don't live there anymore, but I still see it every now and then. So I didn't do too bad of a job. Nobody got killed during it. But with that and a 10 by 10 shed, maybe in 1980, the city was a 10 by 10 shed. We are the second largest city by square miles and infrastructure in this region. We can no longer operate like we're building a 10 by 10 shed. We're building the infrastructure we have. We need the architect plans. We need the blueprint plans. We need to have the data in order to know what we need, when we need it, why we need it, and to be able to prioritize the projects as well. So in 2021, Dude Solutions complete data points. That's our first part of the year. We'll go complete the data points, and what that is just telling, we have to hire this out, and the company does this, that they know what kind of data that the machine captures, and they take Dude Solutions and they map what data points we need to capture, and this data point needs to go to this field, and so forth. That's in the simplistic terms I can understand, okay? So we're going to do that by mid-year, and then after that, we'll see what kind of funding we have on whether or not we go out for bid and are able to actually begin the data gathering of the data for the system. And again, I said that includes road conditions, side paths, curbs, signs, poles, culverts, bridges, stormwater. We won't be able to do the entire city at one time. It'll be cost prohibitive for the first year, no doubt, and maybe 2-3 years we'll have to see, and what priority council wants to put on getting that done. And of course, in 2021, stormwater project analysis, we have budgeted for that, and that's something that I support that we move forward on. Again, I hope that somehow when we go out for that bid for the stormwater project, that we include maybe an electronic way of capturing that data could be put into our Dude Solutions. So we'll go see if that's possible instead of just a book that we have to put in the data. We'll see. The city's aging infrastructure needs, including streets, stormwater, sidewalks, curbs, city facilities, and more, will continue into future years. Continued identification of infrastructure needs is a priority. And additional funding and staff will be required to maintain the data and the program systems created, not to mention the infrastructure projects that are a result of doing it. Infrastructure needs will continue to increase in cost, posing critical funding challenges. It doesn't get cheaper, it gets more expensive. If your backyard or your road looked like this, I think you'd be angry. When they call, we say, we have no stormwater funding for your backyard. We do not have funding for those types of purposes. If it's related to a street, we can to limit with the funding we have to try to, sometimes it's digging a ditch even deeper, but sometimes that just will not work. And especially with the volume of water that some of these, where it's coming from. The 5-year capital plan, council at the budget time was presented with 5-year capital plan that includes all those areas. Just wanted to mention that we have talked about that and went through that. While the improvement projects listed in the plan are feasible, during that 5-year, they're feasible because we're budgeting from what we have. Given the current grant and city financial resources that we know, the capital improvement plan should not be considered to be a comprehensive project list that meets all outstanding needs for the city. It's not. There are known unfunded projects listed in various sections of the capital projects, but there are many that are known that are not listed. We simply don't have staff time to go and do a project for all unfunded and get it estimated and get the cost. We don't have staffing for that to do something we know that can't be funded. Just like the stormwater projects that we have had on the books since the last 1983 study, that probably 2 out of dozens and dozens of projects have only been done in the 40 years. So as previously mentioned, additional funding and staff will be required to maintain the data and the program systems created, again, not to mention the infrastructure projects as a result. New this year, shifting gears, and I can provide you guys copies and hard copies emails. This is, we quickly did a map, thanks to Randy Burkett, Planning Department, did a map, and this is just our list of properties, and I put them into certain categories of facilities and buildings. There's other because it's just some land that we own that is probably for drainage and things like that. And then you can see our parks that we have. So it's just an interesting thing. And this also provides all the parcel numbers, and you can look it up on the GIS, the county's GIS system. It's pretty interesting to see. All right, and to end, to our employees, we have some dedicated employees like no other here in the city. I'm very proud of them. The employees, like the City of Beavercreek staff, are the foundation of any successful workplace. And I would like to thank staff for their dedication and hard work this past year, especially, they have went out of their way. When we were shut down, they were itching to do, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do? Their priority was still, yes, they were worried, just like all of us were worried about catching the coronavirus or their family members, but they were worried about what can I do? I need to help the residents of Beavercreek. I need to help the seniors. I need to help whoever. And throughout this time, it's important that we support each other in the community. Thank you for creating your creative, outside of the box thinking, resourcefulness, and willingness to keep moving the city forward. And our promise, and my promise to residents, is the city will continue to serve residents efficiently and in the most cost-effective manner for services desired by the residents and for which we are able to be supported. It's an honor to serve the residents of this great city of Beavercreek. And here's looking hopefully to a sunny 2021 instead of a mass 2020. Any questions? And thank you, council.
Well, thank you very much, Pete. Anybody have any questions of Pete? As you said earlier, we kind of understand this because we've worked with you trying to develop a lot of it over the year, and but the public is the one that really needs to, if they don't understand, please come and ask or get copies on the internet, go on the internet, study it. It's important to understand how your community functions.
Right.
It is, and one thing that, if I just end with this, good luck, call the state, call the feds, get a hold of somebody. We're 100% different. We're your local government. You call here, people are shocked at times. There's times my assistant and Diane would be gone. I'm answering the city manager line. Can I speak to the city manager? You're speaking to him. What? And how easy accessible city council is too. So it's not the big federal, it's not the big state governments. We're We're residents, just like the residents here, and we're very approachable. I know council is, and my staff and myself are approachable. If you have questions and concerns, please talk to us, and we'll provide the information as needed.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone have anything to add before we move on? All right, we will move on. Thanks, Pete.